Ryan Garcia opens up on his final fight with De La Hoya, distractions and becoming his own boss. Ryan Garcia has reached a point in his career where boxing is no longer just about what happens inside the ring. It's about control, trust, business, pressure, and ultimately deciding who gets to control his future. For years, Garcia was promoted as one of boxing's biggest young stars, with speed, knockout power, massive social media popularity, and the kind of personality that could turn almost any fight into a major event. But behind all that attention, Garcia has dealt with a complicated relationship with the business side of boxing, and now, as he talks about his final fight with Oscar De La Hoya and the distractions that have surrounded his career, a much bigger story is emerging. This isn't simply about one fight. It's about Ryan Garcia wanting to become his own boss. Garcia's relationship with Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy Promotions helped shape the early part of his professional career. When Garcia first exploded onto the boxing scene, the partnership made sense. Golden Boy had the promotional experience, connections, and platform, while Garcia had the talent, personality, and massive fanbase. Together, they helped build Garcia into one of the most recognizable young names in boxing. But as Garcia became bigger, the relationship became more complicated. The more money, attention, and expectations involved, the more important it became for Garcia to have control over his own career. And eventually, the tension between fighter and promoter became impossible to ignore. Garcia has openly discussed the idea that distractions outside the ring can affect a fighter's development. That is especially important in his case because Ryan has never been a typical boxer. He has millions of followers, enormous mainstream attention, sponsorship opportunities, interviews, online controversies, and constant speculation about his personal life. Every statement can become a headline. Every social media post can turn into a debate. Every disagreement with another fighter can become a potential fight announcement. And while that attention can make a fighter extremely valuable, it can also become a major distraction when the goal is to prepare for a dangerous opponent. The reality is that boxing requires an almost obsessive level of focus. A fighter can't simply walk into a training camp and expect talent to do all the work. At the highest level, small details matter. Nutrition matters. Recovery matters. Conditioning matters. Sparring matters. Mental preparation matters. The ability to stay disciplined when nobody is watching matters. Ryan Garcia has tremendous natural ability, but his career has also shown how difficult it can be to balance that ability with everything happening outside the ropes. And that may be one of the biggest lessons Garcia has learned. Being famous is not the same thing as being successful. Having millions of followers is not the same thing as controlling your career. Having knockout power is not enough if the business decisions around you are constantly creating problems. Garcia now appears increasingly focused on the idea of taking ownership of his future, not just as a fighter, but as a businessman and a decision-maker. That brings us directly to the De La Hoya situation. Garcia's final fight under the Golden Boy relationship carries a lot more meaning because it represents the end of an era. For years, Oscar De La Hoya was one of the most important figures connected to Garcia's professional journey. But once the relationship deteriorated, the conversation shifted from potential matchups and championship ambitions to legal battles, public disagreements, and questions about who really had control. That kind of conflict can consume a fighter's attention just as much as an opponent in the ring. And this is where Garcia's story becomes bigger than boxing. Fighters today have more opportunities than ever to build personal brands. Social media allows athletes to communicate directly with fans. Sponsorships can provide additional income. Independent promotional models can give fighters more control. And massive stars can potentially negotiate from a position of power rather than simply accepting whatever a traditional promoter offers. Garcia understands that his name itself has value, and he appears determined to make sure that value works for him. But becoming your own boss also comes with responsibility. When a fighter has a promoter, manager, trainer, or business team, those people can help handle the complicated details surrounding a career. Once you demand more control, you also have to accept more responsibility for the decisions you make. You have to understand contracts. You have to understand marketing. You have to understand negotiations. You have to know when to fight and when not to fight. Most importantly, you have to know which people around you genuinely have your best interests at heart. That's where Ryan Garcia's next chapter becomes so interesting. Garcia is still young enough to have plenty of boxing left, but he is no longer simply the prospect people were waiting to see become a star. He has already become a major attraction. He has fought some of the biggest names of his generation, experienced enormous victories, endured setbacks, and lived through the kind of public scrutiny that can change a fighter permanently. His fight with Gervonta Davis showed just how massive Garcia's commercial appeal could become. The build-up was enormous, the fight generated worldwide attention, and the result gave Garcia one of the toughest lessons of his career. But instead of allowing that moment to define him, Garcia has continued searching for the next chapter. That mentality is important because boxing careers are rarely straight lines. Fighters lose. Fighters change trainers. Fighters change promoters. Fighters change weight classes. Fighters reinvent themselves. And Garcia is clearly trying to reinvent himself. The biggest question is whether becoming his own boss will help him finally eliminate the distractions he has talked about. Because freedom can be powerful, but freedom without discipline can become another problem. If Garcia wants complete control over his career, then he also needs complete commitment to the process. He needs to make sure that the noise surrounding him never becomes louder than the work happening inside the gym. That means separating business from training. It means understanding that not every online argument needs a response. Not every call-out needs to become a fight,